Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. So today I'm going to do another tow video. Things are a little bit different than the last two though. I have the same trailers before. I did tow video on 33s, I got it regeared in 35s. Well, now it's supercharged. So a couple people reached out, said they wanted to see a video towing with the supercharger, and I'm curious as well. So here's the supercharger. Let's get to towing. All right, real quick, I just wanted to show the setup. So obviously we have the supercharger all in its glory. There's a bumper with a winch up front. I have 35-inch tires with 488 gears. I have Fox suspension 2.5 with the dual compression adjusters. In the rear, there's Icon overland springs. They're about 3-inch overland springs. Got a heavy rear bumper. One of the most important things is the weight distribution hitch. Inside, I have a red arc brake controller. You'll definitely need that. And just for fun, I have a pedal commander to see how well that does towing. All right, one more time for anybody who hasn't seen the trailer. It's a 2016 R-Pod 182G. Rough weight is approximately 3,300 to 3,400 pounds. That's an estimate with all the gear that I have inside. It's about 20 feet long. Hitch weight's probably somewhere around the 400-pound mark. And it's actually pretty aerodynamic. It's narrower, so I don't have to have tow mirrors on the 4Runner. It actually has a pretty good level stance with the overland springs and the weight distribution hitch. So before we hit the road, I want to point out something that I think is pretty important. In some of the other tow videos that I've done, people pointed out in the comments, or at least wanted to know what the transmission temperature was, and I didn't have a way to monitor it in the other videos, so I really didn't know. The reason why I bring this up is because I have this bumper. In my second tow video, I had the bumper and the winch installed in the back. The bumper isn't so much an issue because it has some openings in the front, and it doesn't really change the shape of the stock plastic that I removed. It's the winch that is the problem. Actually, come down here and I'll show you what I mean. Okay, so here's a look at the bumper with the winch. I never did install the light here because the brackets didn't fit, so it leaves a little bit of gap for air. And down at the bottom, I have a flashlight sitting in there. You can see these two holes in the side that are really so you can get up and mess with the winch, but they can also add airflow as well. So the problem you're going to have with installing a winch for your transmission is if you look in here, this back section, this bottom section of your radiator actually runs the transmission fluid through it. And that's what cools the transmission. Well, the problem is, you can see most of that airflow is blocked all the way to the side by the winch. So in addition to the winch blocking airflow, if you install full skid plates like this over the transmission, you're going to block the factory airflow over the transmission pan, which will cause heating issues as well. Okay, so currently there is no way to monitor your transmission temperature through the stock gauge cluster on the 4Runner. So in order for me to see what the temperature was, I ordered a scan gauge and installed it, and I'll show you here. A lot of this is due to watching Sandy Cat's videos and him installing a external cooler on the front of his rig. If you want to check that video out, definitely look it up. It's got a lot of good information on it. One thing I noticed, I haven't towed with this yet with the scan gauge, but the scan gauge will show me when I'm off-roading and climbing up a steep incline for an extended period of time. When it's warm outside, the transmission starts to overheat, and I was noticing temperatures about 240 degrees. The problem with trying to find out what the normal engine temperature is Toyota doesn't really specify that at all. So I had to search around the internet, and finally I just spoke with Sandy Katz, and he told me that, you know, it's about 185 degrees is your normal operating temperature, and that's where your transmission should stay at. So just to be safe, I have 25,000 miles on it. I went and got the transmission flushed, and the techs at the transmission place I went to told me the transmission was really dirty for, you know, only having 25,000 miles on it. So that's problematic because that means I was overheating probably all the other times I towed, and going off-road, I was overworking the transmission. So this is just information so that you know what to avoid in the future. So if you install a bumper with a winch, you're probably overheating your transmission and you don't even know it. So get a scan gauge. So the best option would be to install an external transmission cooler up front somewhere. Today I don't have that done. I'm going to tow with it anyway. I'm just going to take a risk for the internet, the sake of the internet. I want to see with the winch and towing what the transmission temps get to, and I'll show you guys as we hit the road. All right, and we're off. Whew. You still tell the trailer's back there. It does have more acceleration, but there's still a trailer back there. All right, so how I have everything set up, there's a GoPro showing the scan gauge. It's got the dash cluster. Unfortunately, there's a little bit of glare on it, but we'll just work with what we got. It shows the transmission temperature in the bottom right-hand corner. 185 is like a normal operating temperature, so right now we're just flat landing, and I'll keep you posted on what happens. Okay, so far we're just flat landing. It's about 6.7 miles so far, and you can already see 195 degrees on the transmission. 197 just jumped up a little bit. So it definitely, you know, without that airflow up front, is making the transmission a little warmer while towing. Normally flat landing, I don't have an issue. It stays about 185 without a trailer. So far the acceleration is noticeable, definitely more power. I mean, it's still not like a race car. It was never really fast, but it definitely has a bit more power to get you going from the stoplights. Yeah, we just keep going up on the transmission. So unfortunately, coming up, the same spot where I did the 0 to 60 run to see the acceleration from the last two videos. It's under construction, so the road's all messed up and speed limit is 45. So I'm not going to be able to get 60. So what I'll do is I'll find a different route, and it'll be a different incline and slightly different conditions, but I'll still see. You know, we'll just put it to the floor and see what happens. So all right, there's been some slight ups and downs. We're about to get on the freeway. If you can see, trans temperature's 217, so it's definitely getting up there, and I haven't really even been pushing it. So here we go, getting on the freeway, and I'll, oh boy. It's got some power. Watch that transmission. Oh great, now there's a big truck. Luckily, I'm still able to pull up the hill. You can hear that exhaust, just sounds like a jet engine. So 222 going up on the freeway with the pedal all the way to the floor. 224. Man. That exhaust is screaming. It's blowing a lot of air out the engine. So 226. It's still climbing up the incline. It is noticeable, the difference in power. Like it has much better power for towing. You know, now the biggest issue to address, like I talked about before, is just keeping the transmission cool. If I get a little more downshifts, it still accelerates up the hill. That transmission's getting warmer, 231, so we're going about 70 miles per hour up this hill, maintaining speed. So 231, starting to level off just a little bit. All right, so this continues up. 231, that's about the temp we've seen on the transmission. Much better power. If you're gonna get a trailer and tow regularly, supercharger might be something you should consider. So, all right, I'm gonna turn around, find a spot to try and do a 0-60 run and show you guys what that looks like. All right, coming up to a light. Ooh, I caught a red. Perfect. And there's a 4Runner in front of me. We'll see as soon as the light turns green, we'll see how well 0 to 60 does. I think the last one was 26 miles or 26 seconds, so here we go. Whew. It is slowly creeping. I think the 4Runner in front of me is gonna block me. No, they're moving, maybe. And 60. That was a struggle. I think this inclines quite a bit higher. So we'll see if we can find another one, and might have to head back. 240 is the temperature on the transmission. All right, well, this concludes the test tow. It looks like we got 9 miles to the gallon, and by the time we got home, the transmission was at 222 degrees. So let's head back into the garage, and I'll let you know what I think. Okay, so is towing with the supercharger better? The answer is yes, it's obvious. It's better. More power equals more better, right? I mean, that's why diesel trucks these days are 500 horsepower and 1,200 foot-pounds of torque. But really, it does help out quite a bit, just maintaining speeds, inclines, just all-around drivability of the 4Runner while towing. So specific to the 4Runner, after all the videos I've done and all my experience towing, which I'm not an expert, but I've just done this a few times, there's some things that I would do differently besides just getting a supercharger. So, you know, if you're gonna tow and you're gonna keep your 4Runner for quite a long time, the first one I'd say is just keep it light. If you add too much weight to the 4Runner with all the armor and everything that I added, you start creeping up on your gross vehicle capacity, and that takes away from your ability to tow. So that's one drawback of having the supercharger, is I've really made my 4Runner heavy, and it kind of takes away from the power of the supercharger when you're towing. Number two, I'd get a scan gauge right away, just so you can monitor what's happening with your vehicle. It's silly to me that you can't see the transmission temp on the 4Runner, especially if it's rated to tow. Number three, if you're gonna tow, absolutely, without a doubt, get a weight distribution hitch. The coils in the rear are too soft, and you'll raise the front end and you'll throw your 4Runner out of whack. It's just safer, get a weight distribution hitch. Another thing, number four, get a brake controller. Again, it's silly they didn't come with it. It's rated to tow 5,000 pounds. It should come from the factory with a brake controller. So get one of those. And then after you've monitored it and seen how things are going with your transmission, if it's getting hot, then get an external oil cooler. So that would be number five. After you've done those basics and you're gonna keep your 4Runner for a while, the most effective upgrade that I found was the re-gearing. That made the biggest difference with towing, keeping the acceleration going and the torque to the ground. Re-gear made the biggest difference to me. Another notable difference is, at first I didn't really care for the Fox shocks, but once you can tighten down the compression so they don't move quite as much, it really helps out with sway control when you're towing a trailer. And then last but not least, if you're really gonna keep it a long time and you want all the power, get a supercharger. It will help with towing. I don't know if it's completely worth, you know, the ton of money that you'll spend, but If you've done everything else and you're going to keep your 4Runner for a long time, get a supercharger. Well, I hope you enjoyed the video. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Let me know what you think you do differently when towing. Hit the thumbs up button for me and the subscribe. And then check out the other 2 videos. I'll put a link for them below of the other 2 tow videos that I've done. Also, be sure to check out Sandy Cat's. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.